Hello guys, so I guess I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring, and whenever I play Dark Souls games, so I played Demon Souls when it first came out and nobody knew about it. I skipped Dark Souls 1, I skipped Dark Souls 2, I played Bloodborne, which is an amazing game, exclusively for PlayStation unfortunately, and I played Dark Souls 3 for literally 100 days of playtime, 2,000 over hours. And these are amazing games. The reason I find them amazing is actually because when I first played games, they were hard. Like, games were hard, and then in the later, in more recent years, maybe in the past 10, 15 years, games just became this sort of easy story kind of thing. And then I got Elden Ring as expecting to play, expecting it to be pretty easy, but it turns out that the devs are kind of forced to make it harder each time. So, it's not easy at all. However, at a certain point, you get super powerful in this game. And the idea behind making builds for me in these games is that why not play a mage? Why not play casters when there is equipment to kind of make casters be able to do melee as well, to be able to be warriors as well. Having said that, warriors, more melee focused characters, tend to be a lot tankier, and they do a lot of damage, and you could argue that you can create maybe the best build. One of the best builds in Elden Ring is a item caster. So you use Ash of Wars to infuse items with the spells that are available through Ashes of War, but that means you have to keep swapping weapons, or it's not the kind of play that I like personally, but it's completely viable. It means you end up with a tanky character who can cast all sorts of spells or special abilities. I'll start with my first character, which was this is an astrologer class that the idea behind it was to use the Darkmoon Greatsword, which is From Software's persistent. It's one of the things that comes back every game. So yeah, for a while I used the Moonveil on this character just because Moonveil is so powerful, and I have another character for that. But the stats on the astrologer class are actually slightly better for the Darkmoon Greatsword. And just to show you what this Greatsword's like, you basically have this garbage going on. It's a great sword. It used to be a much more powerful, still powerful, but much more powerful class of weapons in previous games. The weapon art buffs the sword like this, so regularly it's just like that, but you buff it, you get this, and you can cast. Oh yeah, that thing sucks because it has no verticality. Massive damage though. And so the gear is not min-maxed for this yet at this time. This is the caster form. You'll be casting with the highest spell buff staff in your main hand and the cast speed staff in your left hand. These are all 150 builds, right? Helmet depends on what you like to use, but most likely Lusat's crown or Snow Witch hat. If you want to somehow try and kill people with the Darkmoon Greatsword, you go for this. But in any case, this is a pure caster build. The kind of spells that I tend to like are those that persist. So you end up doing things like this. Things that stay on the map, or just super high damage spells like that. This is a lot of fun. It's like an artillery attack. Anyway, yeah, I'll just be explaining a bit of the sorcery here. It's a lot of fun because it lets you do certain things that, you know, you can shoot up ledges, for example. Has a huge AoE. This is more of a sniping tool, right? And this is your sort of harass, more likely to hit mechanic, right? Use this to hit people. And this is your, I would say this is your DPS. As you can see, the MP drain is incredible, so you can't really... The way I'm playing right now is not for... it's not how you would play PvP. And these are swords that auto-track. Of course, another staple. You want to keep these up as much as possible. And in order to zone people out from around you, you cast that. It's really pretty impossible to approach a sorcerer if they can just sustain their MP. Anyway, so if you need to pull out your sword, you switch out your high damage staff, but you keep your speed casting staff, because honestly, if you need to pull out your sword, you probably still need to cast fast, right? Stat wise, it is really, yeah, that's what I mean by min-maxing. So just enough stats to use the Darkmoon Greatsword, which you don't have to use. You can even go for something like the Noble Slender Sword. Yeah, I used this for a while, but straight swords aren't what they used to be. They're okay in this game, but the best thing about them is probably just their low requirements. But because of the way that poise works, you can't poise break almost anyone with this. Misericord possibly for Bloodhound Step, just to get away, or in PvE to use criticals. This is the Moonveil that I did use for a while. Wings of Estelle if you want to use something less OP. And all sorts of staves if you want, staves if you want to kind of mix up your spell choices. In any case, this is really the kind of stat spread. I went 5 levels over the level, so you can deduct 5 points from anywhere here that you want to. But you get my point. Like, this is really using everything pretty much aside from consumable items to buff your spell damage. And so the most powerfully buffed spell is this one. As you can see, one hit from the 12 beams is enough to kill that thing. These are really low level monsters, so I'll take the chance to see if I have... Okay. What monsters do I have? What monsters do I have? This is New Game Plus, so some of the areas are not up yet. Alright, I remember there's a knight around here. Whoa. Anyway, this build is stronger for PvE just because Darkmoon Greatsword really kind of sucks in PvP at this time. Grand Temple Lift, Undead, Grand Temple. But you're still kind of really pushing the limits of what a character can do, and the amount of damage output from this will surprise PvP players, because a lot of people will go for something slightly more balanced. Check out the damage on that. You're not really gonna see mages put out that kind of damage. Of course, they're gonna be more likely to die. I mean, this character is gonna be more likely to die, and they're more likely to survive. In any case, that is the sort of PvE Darkmoon Mage Astrologer. It's basically a min-maxed astrologer. So let's take a look at the amount of hours I put into this game. I'm not some sort of elite player, keep in mind. But I put in 2k hours into Dark Souls 3. And I've already put in, let's see, 280, 300 hours into this game. And it's insane. So we'll talk about a slightly different build. And this is an Int Faith build. The build previously is a Int build. This is a Golden Order Priest. Alright, so starting with the class, this is a Vagabond. And now, the reason it's a Vagabond is because Vagabonds have the lowest arcane stat in the game. But that alone, you see, I realized later on, having 14 strength and 13 dex allows me to use halberds, right? Halberds come with stuff like Phantom Slash, Bloodhound Step, and whatnot. They are better for breaking poise, but it's not necessary to start as a Vagabond. I just ended up doing it because I didn't think about the strength dex requirements. You could actually start with an Astrologer and use something like Black Knife, sorry, or, you know, very low requirement weapons. However, I have a halberd, and it turns out these poke attacks are they break more poise than all those smaller weapons, and they allow me to, especially with, you know, Bloodhound Step, they allow me to get away. Now the fun thing about this build is actually, despite what some people are saying, Golden Order incantations are pretty fucking strong now. So as a staple for most incantation builds, you have this combo, right? You want to have your Bestial Sling Honed Bolt combo just for the fast cast, and this thing does some insane damage. So it's not about the one hit damage, it's not about the hit and returning damage. The idea is if you can get 2 off, 3, this is when the DPS really ramps up because of the rings that are coming back and the rings that are shooting out. In addition to that, this spell, Jesus, I've one-shot groups of people with this. It's insane. People are not scared of it. They're not really, at this time, aware of what kind of damage it can do, especially because with my build, I do have pretty high faith and intelligence, right? And I have all the buff items for this. I have the Holy Talismans, the Flock Canvas, these 2 faster cast, which is not enough to max the cast speed, but you know, you take what you can get. I have these because I tend not to put endurance into my caster builds, so I need regen, and it kind of does force you to be more conservative in what you do. Like you don't want to run when you don't have to, you don't want to dodge when you don't have to, and you don't want to cast when it doesn't count. In any case, what would happen normally is you'll meet somebody, and if they let you get 1 or 2 of these off, they're gonna be hurting. And if you find the right situations to drop that, they're gonna be dying. So let's see. Let's take a look at something like, yeah, the underground roadside. These mobs don't take high holy damage, but there are some properties here. So Elden Stars, for example, is the final boss's spell in a neutered version, to be honest. So, you know, it's not much damage, right? But here's when the damage starts to ramp up. You see this? The DPS ramps up as the rings start to come back and you keep releasing them, and that's pretty crazy. So we have Frenzied Burst as well, just because it's a long range and fast moving projectile. It's not perfect. We have a lot of aggression to debuff people if you can pull it off. Urge Heal because we have the slot for it, and this is your fast combo when you can You don't want to trade with that. If possible, you don't want to trade with that. And our sidearm is, of course, the halberd, which, as you can see, poise breaks them. Well, not poise breaks, but it does stun them. And that's really convenient in PvP, actually. Right? And so these guys don't have buffs, but you know, this is the spell you use to learn that Radagon is Marika. Oh wait, that big spoiler. Sorry guys. But that's staying in the video. Anyway. The high area coverage of these weapons, this spell, really just... The idea in PvP for spells is they need to be fast, or basically how hittable they are, right? And these are surprisingly hittable. The range is surprisingly long. Although this thing is countering me quite a bit. For demonstration purposes, we will see how much damage and stagger Radagon's Rings of Light cause. Right, so this is a range that it will hit at. Isn't that crazy? You'll knock people down, and in PvP, a lot of people get one shot. Unfortunately, it has no poise, it just has the range and area. So you can faster cast this without charging it. Doesn't do as much stagger, doesn't do as much damage. But it catches people off. See? Catches them off. Anyway, this is an extremely fun build to play. Moving on to other builds. Whoop. Misclicked. Don't, yeah. I'm pretty sure my mouse was overload game. And that's the thing with console ports and imperfect. I mean, I love the game, but UI is not perfect. Like the fact that you have to scroll through spells to cast something. It's like a mini game in itself, intentional or not. Instead of just pressing a certain key that is bound to a certain spell. Now this build is actually the closest thing I have to a warrior. Right, so it's actually supposed to kind of end at this level. 83 is the level I want to cap this at, I think. So 40 vigor, you normally want to get 60 if you're going to be a melee character, you know, 40 to 60, higher the better. 20 strength, 59 dex, and it kind of soft caps at these stats. 10 faith is just because I have the armor to add 1 faith. Again, starting class is Vagabond. And it's really stat efficient. I like this build. Extremely stat efficient. I haven't finished collecting the spells that you can cast at 10 faith, but you know, I will get around to it one of these days, maybe even today. And as you can see, the gear is a stamina regen shield, beast clawmark seal, and the bolt of Gransaxx, which a lot of faith builds are complaining about this because the most the most stylish long range single target nuke is this. That's insane, right? I mean, this is an 83 character dealing 3k damage, right? Fully charged. So let's see, do I have the right talismans for this? Yep, this upgrades charge damage, this upgrades skill damage. This is a flat 12% buff. And of course, I always want to add stamina regen. Now, just to add more damage, I might do something like... Well, I would need the Ritual Sword Talisman, which is going to be... Let's just go get it right now. Is that the Lux thing, right? Or Tree Grazing? No, Lux Ruins. Yep. So, you know, I'll be using this on a really early game boss. It's really not a tough fight. But yeah, you can, you don't really want to be doing this, but you can shield poke. You don't really want to be doing it with this shield though. It's, the shield's there just for the regen. But, you know, it gives you the option, and you don't have a high stamina bar to really make use of it, so it's not your best choice. Unless you put barricade shield on it, which you can. Alright, can't get there from there. But yeah, imagine invading with this class. You have 10 Faith gives you all the resist spells, like all the basic resist spells. And not only that, you have some basic finishing spells too. You have enough MP to cast the lightning spear 4 times, I believe. Right? So you're not exactly a caster. But if you do land it, you'll probably kill somebody at this level. Look at that damage. Not charged, a lot faster, a lot less damage. But there we go, Ritual Sword Talisman. So this is another 10% damage on top of what we're doing now. Just realized I already had it. And this is probably the maximum Gransaxx damage you could pull off outside of consumables. So let's see what it does to this guy, yeah? $2.6k. No. Whoop. Yeah, so this is a bit of a gimmicky, low-level twink kind of build, but I didn't twink it. I didn't transfer items to it. No, I did transfer items to it, sorry. So yeah, it is a bit of a twinky build. But it's the closest thing I have to a warrior. Now the next build we're going to look at is more of a pure faith build. So that would be, I think, this guy. Yep. Again, same thing with the Darkmoon Greatsword caster in build. This has 99 faith. We're using the black knife. You can use the blade of calling. You have several choices. The sacred earthsteel dagger doesn't really... I mean, you can use it. I haven't finished building that. And I'm using... Currently, I'm enjoying the lightning spells on this build. But if you really want to just be PvE, ideally go for fire, because of flame grant me strength. Now, a good place to show you the power of this build, let's say, against big bosses especially. Okay, well, I'll demonstrate the spells first. The first one is Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike. This spell is crazy on big bosses, so if you cast it, all these individual lightning bolts will hit. Like, I've one-shot dragons with this, you know, not a problem. Wonder if I've left any dragons alive though. I probably have Ezekis or Esykes, however you want to say it. Let's go visit him and try to 1-2 shot him. Oh well, I mean, hey, here's a nice test dummy. But he will debuff me. So let's go as close as possible and drink our flask and that is some insane damage. 13k off of one cast. $15k. So coming. I'm sorry guys, that was actually my cleaner. So here we go. Yeah, I mean these guys are too weak, honestly. So let's go visit Ezekie's with this build. Lightning is hella flashy, hella fun, not it's I kinda built the spell similar to the Golden Order spells. But not really. It's not gonna have the same effect. This spell in particular, which we can't cast mounted, it has high poise, so you can kind of almost guarantee cast of it, and that makes it. If people don't dodge it in PvP, they're dead. So let's see. It's gonna be like bam, bam. Obviously, the dragon lightning strike is arguably flashier, but trying to land that in PvP is a bit harder. The range is better on it though. You fast cast it, that's how fast it comes out. With Radagon icon. Okay, here we go. They're in water too, so they get extra shots. Anyway, I don't think we'll bother to go to Ezekie's or whatever. The gist of this build is exactly as shown. So we've covered Int, Faith. Normally the last one that we should be covering is something like Fth Arcane. The thing is, I've done Fth Arcane and you're supposed to use the Dragon Communion seal, right? Honestly, if you're going Fth Arcane, I suggest you go for a pure dragon build, because your breath damage is gonna eviscerate people. It's a lot more powerful than people give it credit for, but for some reason the conversation is around going Fth Arcane to go pure Faith, to be a Faith caster, and that's really stat intensive. I'm sure it's amazing at maybe higher levels than even 150, but if you want to keep Elden stars, your stat split becomes 50 Faith and about 63 Arcane, just so that you can get the +2 from going to 63 Arcane as opposed to 62, the +2 spell buff from the Dragon Communion seal. And when you do the kind of like multiplications of the dragon, like for example the Stone Gravel seal buffs lightning spells, right? if you add the multiplications, if you multiply them into the spell buffs, wielding 2 Dragon Cult seals is gonna beat your Dragon Communion seal plus 1 Dragon Cult seal. If you can get what I mean. Just having this higher spell buff doesn't beat the multiplicative factor that you get from having 2. And you can try the math yourself, but ultimately, last I checked, I was correct. If I'm wrong, fine. This used to be an Arcane Faith build. I found it to be not that much more powerful. I found it to be more stat intensive. I found it to be able to deal more. Well, it's interesting because in that scenario, you want to use a Scavenger's Curve sword for the bleed buildup, and that's where it's like you start to really become a more melee character, and that's not a bad thing if you want to do that. I just wanted to try something more focused on lightning, and Pure Faith with 2 Dragon Cult seals does the job. If I've done something wrong with my math somewhere, do let me know. This is just going to be a quick showcase of another Sorcerer build, and this is the meta build, pretty much. It's exactly the same, except we're starting with a Prisoner class, and you guys probably know what's coming here. We're using the Moonveil. The Prisoner class is slightly more optimized for the Moonveil, and this shit is insane. This weapon is the most easiest to use weapon with the best weapon art. It's flashy, it's high damage. If I could even, oh yeah, yeah, after talking it up, missing the fucking weakest mob in the game. Like that's unacceptably powerful, and it's super easy to use. It's super fluid to use. It feels good. Of course, if you're an experienced PvPer, you've seen this so much that despite it being good, you're probably, because you see, if you see it a lot in PvP, people start to be good at countering it or dodging it. That doesn't make it any weaker. It just makes people more used to dealing with it, and it's still a pain in the ass. So this build is so far not complete in terms of levels. The stats are a bit low, as you can see. The goal is to hit at least 80 intelligence or 99 and have 40 vigor and 40 mind. So conservatively, we end at 137. If we really push it, we're going to go for a 150 build with this. But yeah, it's pretty much the same thing, except the stats are slightly more optimized for Moonveil. Right, it's pretty much the same thing. But that's min-maxing for you. I had to collect the spells for these characters multiple times, and to be honest, making a new character in Elden Ring is a lot more busy work than in previous Souls games. This final class is purely a PvE warrior class, which, you know, I don't really want to showcase so much because I will show it. You guys probably know what this is. It's the Marai's Executioner Sword with the, yeah, with that weapon art. So the idea behind it is to have the highest possible damage on this sword. Basically, every point of stat is basically gonna be designed to maximize damage on this one sword and this one ability, right? Which means use Millicent's Prosthesis, Rodden's Wingsword Insignia, and the Shard of Alexander, which I don't have on this build yet. As you can see, it's really incomplete, doesn't even have 4 talisman slots. Anyway, these are all my builds right now. 300 hours of playing this game, which is, you know, 13 days or so. 14 days, is it? I don't know. I'm too old to do math now. But in general, it's just about trying to max out and min max caster classes for me at this time, because until I really get fluid with weapon swapping, it's gonna be a bit of a pain to do melee effectively. Anyways, that's all for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you again next time. Amazing music, by the way.